At 7 years old, you could barely take care of yourself. But that didn't matter because you had to make sure that your siblings were taken care of, because if they weren't, you might get in trouble. By 10 years old, you knew about money problems that you couldn't even fix. And by the time you were 13 years old, you were given the responsibility to watch the children as if you weren't a child yourself. On the surface, this may look like maturity, but if you look below, this is actually due to emotional neglect. You were probably admired for being the responsible one, for being the one that your parents didn't have to worry about. While everybody never understood, this was all a product of trauma. This was all a product of you being the oldest daughter. So in this video, that's who I want to talk to. I want to talk to the oldest daughters who have built up this identity of being the strong one, of being the independent one, of being the one that has it all together. And for the first time, I want you to let go and see that you don't have to wear this armor, even though it's something that has literally become all that you know. So let's get straight into it. Now, the first thing I want to talk to you about is something called the hidden role. There's actually a role that you started to play at a young age called parentification that you did not realize, and it's honestly where a lot of your trauma started. So I want to describe to you what is parentification. This is a role reversal where a child provides inappropriate emotional or practical support to their parents or siblings, essentially becoming a pseudo adult. The reason why I really want to highlight the word inappropriate in this explanation is because at a young age, you were not supposed to be told this information and or given these responsibilities. For example, when it comes to information, there was no reason why you should be aware that your parents were about to divorce soon, as if you were supposed to help. And it wasn't a thing a lot of times of it being, okay, we're telling the kids. It was like, I'm telling you because you're the oldest. It shouldn't have been your responsibility to feel like, okay, what am I supposed to do that my parents are about to divorce? It shouldn't have even been knowledge to you that your parents could not afford to keep the house. It shouldn't have been knowledge to you that your parents can barely afford to pay for lunch. And it was always usually the oldest because, first and foremost, a lot of times people don't want to tell their business to others, especially if it's bad. They don't want to tell other people and put their business on Front Street. So they want to keep it in-house. And they just look to you as the best person for this because there's always this thing of the oldest can handle it. People, especially if you have kids young, I've heard people say all the time, my youngest grew up with me and, we really grew up together. And it's like, yeah. You guys did grow up together. You're the one that had the child and you became an adult, but then that child had to become an adult with you. And so there's that point of it where you kind of become like this pseudo, kind of like this fake adult, because now you're thinking about things that other kids don't think about. You're worrying about things. And what makes it so much worse is because there's literally nothing you can do about it. And so it's frustrating to you because like you want to help, and you want to help financially. Sometimes you want to help emotionally, but you literally don't have the bandwidth to do it. And so that's sometimes what happens when parents look at you as a confidant and like pour their things on you. But then sometimes you just hear it. Maybe your parents are arguing, or maybe your mother is constantly crying about something. So it's like, even if they don't tell you explicitly, you still have this worry and still know about it. And then also you become a pseudo adult when it comes to your siblings, because there's this thing of like, make sure your siblings do this, make sure your siblings do that. And so you kind of feel like, well, I have to come into this different role. One thing I can definitely say when I was younger, I had to feel like I couldn't be a sibling because, and I'll never forget, there was a time period where like me and my sister were playing, and I know my mom didn't mean any harm by it, but she said to me, she was like, that's why she doesn't listen to you, because you play with her too much. I was like 15 years old, 14 years old. And it was just things like that where it was like, halfway what she was saying was right. When I would tell my sister to do her homework, or when I told my sister it's time to eat or something like that, and my mom's not there, she wouldn't listen to me because she's looking at me like, you're just my sibling. You're not my parent. But then there was another part of it where it was just like, but why do I have to pick? Why do I have to be the person that's like, okay, well, I'm going to be the fun sibling that can play with you, or I have to like assume this adult role of being your parent and making sure you do things, because I can't do both because you're not going to respect me when I say to do something. And so it's just different things like that, in my opinion, where you start to become this adult mentally and you start putting on these responsibilities for yourself, and then just realizing at a very young age that you don't receive comfort, but you provide it. Like, there's not a thing of people making sure, hey, are you okay? Hey, did you do your homework? Did you eat? Like, soon as your parents get home is worrying about your siblings. Did you make sure they did this? Did you make sure they did that? And so you put yourself on the back burner without realizing it, because it's like, I don't get comfort. I don't get made sure, am I okay? Because I'm always okay. And we subconsciously do that to make the house run well. There is no time for people to worry about my comfort. There's no time for people to worry about what's going on with me. And so we suppress our emotions and suppress our feelings and just learn how to keep going. And the worst part about it is because we get admired for it. We actually get congratulated for it. And we don't realize we shouldn't be doing this. Like, we get congratulated for being such a great big sister and making sure things are handled. Or on the flip side, even if we do not get congratulated for it all the time, we're always told when we don't do it. You're always told, well, why didn't you help her with her homework? Well, why didn't you? It's never a question of, well, did you at least do what you were supposed to do for yourself? What are you, at least you? And so there's this thing of us being like, we want to shy away from the shame of our parents ridiculing us for making sure our siblings didn't do something. But then also at the same time too, as a child, we want the love, the care, the affection from our parents. And if we feel like the more that we do things, the more that we get it, we correlate that to love, and we correlate that, it honestly, in my opinion, being a moral thing. Like, morally, I have to make sure that I take care of people morally. It's not just a want to do it. It feels like I have to do it. Like, if I don't do it, it's wrong. Kind of like pushing an old woman. I think everybody can agree morally pushing an old woman is wrong. Like, that's just a thing. Like, it's a fact almost, right? And I think that's what it becomes for us. It's no longer, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? We start taking care of people around us before ourselves, because morally, we were taught since a child, that's what you do. And when you don't do it, that's when you get in trouble. And that's when you get yelled at. And essentially, as a child, our perception of it, that's what makes you a bad person. And so that's what I first thing I want to talk to you about is the role that you went into, the role of parentification, and essentially being this fake adult. It didn't matter if you were 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you were a mini adult. The next one is adult consequences. And this is from, you having that parentification kind of identity at a young age. And this is some of the consequences that happen due to having that for so long once you become an adult. So you probably are the person that people can talk to. You're probably the person that can help people go through their problems. And it probably even makes you feel good that you can do that for people and that you can be there for people. But when it comes to your problems, you talk to no one. And this is because one of the things you've learned, and I've talked about this before, is you are supposed to give care and not receive it. But another thing is too, and this does not make you a bad person. I thought when I first learned this, and maybe I'm just the only person that experiences this, I'll take that. But there's a little bit of a hierarchy that you give yourself when it comes to people who are especially your age or quote unquote doing sometimes things that you do, especially if you're not exactly where you want to be in life. And this is because at a very young age, right, people called you mature and you had a little bit of a different demeanor possibly than people your age when you were a child. It doesn't mean that you didn't have friends that were your age. It doesn't mean that you couldn't relate to people your age, but there was just something about you that was just a little bit more mature, because at a very young age, you had to take on more responsibility than the average person your age. At your age, you had to worry about more things probably than the average person your age. And so I think subconsciously you look at people your age like you can't handle this, because that's what it's been for so long. Even though by the time people turn 18, 19, 20, you possibly move out the house, or you possibly don't have all the responsibilities of being the oldest sibling that you once had before, but there's still you being in that role of just feeling so mature and feeling so grown, because that is literally the role you've assumed your entire life. And so I think for me, sometimes it's hard for me to especially ask for help when it comes to my friends or just people my age, because I'm like, y'all really don't get it. Even if they're going through the same thing I'm going through. Because for so many years, no one understood me because I was the oldest, like the responsibilities that I had. And I didn't even understand the responsibilities that I had. I was worrying about adult responsibilities. I was worried about sometimes money. I was worried about sometimes, making sure that I wasn't too much or whatever so the household can go well. Like that's the stuff I was worried about. And I don't think a lot of children were because they were able to be just a child. And so that's why I said I don't want it to necessarily sound bad, but it is sometimes this hierarchy that you give yourself when it comes to people your age. And you don't even mean to do it, but you just feel like, what's the point of me asking you for help? Like, you don't get it. You don't get what I'm going through. You don't get what I'm experiencing. You don't get it, even though you can help other people your age. But you're just like, that's just what I do. That's what I've done my entire life. And I want to talk to you about a few more things that is the result of that. But that's definitely, I want people to start thinking about. Do you subconsciously like put your problems and your responsibilities a little bit on a higher pedestal as if people wouldn't understand? And the only people that do understand are people who are way, way older than you or way, way, way more experienced than you can help you. Because, like I said, at a young age, you became a pseudo adult. You became a fake adult. And what adult is going to ask a child for help? And so subconsciously, you just got used to not looking at your peers as if they can help you. You can help them, but it doesn't feel like it often can be reciprocated because that's just not, they can't handle it. And so one of the things that you probably deal with is a difficulty asking for help in this adult lifestyle now. And this is because we often see a help equaling weakness. This is because as a child, you were taught if you can do something, then you should do it. And if you can't do something, that is the only time that you should not do it. Because you assume so much responsibility, it was this thing of, and maybe it was specifically your household explicitly said or you just felt, but my mom, I know, definitely used to be like, well, why didn't you? Like, why didn't you ask your sister if she was hungry too? And it's like, because I fed her before she did her homework. And once she finished her homework, I ate finally because like I was making sure everything was straight. But there's this thing of like, if you can do it, you should have did it. So you still should have asked her, why didn't you make sure all the clothes were folded? You and your sisters. Well, I folded her clothes first and then I had to finish my homework and I didn't have enough time. But there's this thing of if you can do it, I can't just say, well, I was folding clothes all day and I kind of wanted to watch some TV. No, you could have did it, so you should have did it. And so as we get older, we feel like we're weak for asking for help because we think asking for help is a reflection of our ability. We think if we are asking for help, that means we are incapable of doing that thing. And one thing I've realized with a lot of other people, don't get me wrong, definitely ask for help if you can't do something, but there are some people who know they can do something themselves, but they'll still ask for help. Like I've lived in 3 apartments. In every apartment, I've built up my bed and took down my bed by myself. People have literally asked me, do I want help? And I've said no. Why? Because I'm like, I can do it. Just because you can do something does not mean you have to do it. But that's what it felt like for so long. Like, if I can do it, why would I ask somebody for help? And then sometimes too, when people even ask me for help, I look at it as a weakness. Would they think I'm incapable? Would they think I can't do it? And it motivates me more. But it's like, no, sometimes people are like, I can just help you. And I think a lot of oldest daughters lose out on a lot of money, a lot of experiences, sometimes even connections, because there's this thing of I can do everything by myself. And it's like, you have but so much energy in a day. You have but so much money. You have but so much you. But you're so used to giving everything that you got that you think you have to do it for everything. And it's like, saying you need help is not a reflection of your capabilities. You can say you need help with something and be able to do it by yourself. So I want you to start thinking about that. Like, what areas in your life do you tell people I don't need help? But it's like you could use it, but you're like, why would I use it? Because I could do this myself. But it's like, why do you have to do it yourself? You're forcing yourself to. Another one is overwhelm feels normal. And I think we are so used to living like high strung and doing everything and making sure everybody is straight that even when we don't have these responsibilities, we create them in our adult life. And so we put so much pressure on ourselves. We have to be the best. We have to, make sure we have this long or very, strenuous schedule, or like everything we do has to be major. We can't just start small. And I think it's because even though you're not in that particular space all the time, and for some people they are, but your body, your mind, your nervous system has become so accustomed to being overwhelmed that it's just like fast, 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 fast. We got to keep going. We got to keep going. We got to keep going. And sometimes I think it goes back to the previous thing I said. There's this feeling of, if I can do it, why wouldn't I? But I think paying attention to where you overwhelm yourself in life is so important, because a lot of us overwhelm ourselves because that's just what we're accustomed to. Like, it feels weird to be bored. It feels weird not to have a whole bunch of responsibility, because it's like, it makes us feel lazy. It makes us feel incapable. It makes us feel, and it's like, no, it's nothing wrong with you. Like, you deserve to like take a nap today. You deserve to scroll on social media for an hour. You deserve, and not to feel guilty about it or feel like I should be doing this. That happens to me so much. Like, I'll take a nap and I'll wake up and literally be like, oh, I was sleeping for an hour. I could have did this. Or I'll be on social media for too long and I could have did that. And you could have. Don't get me wrong. Don't make it a habit. But like, sometimes you deserve to rest. But you feel like your parents are going to come and say to you, why are you sleeping? Why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? Even though they're not there anymore. At least not in the literally right now tense, being in your ear. And one of the final ones I want to talk about is boundaries feeling like betrayal, like saying no, feeling like being literally sometimes you committing a crime. Like, it feels so bad, going back to the moral thing. But this is because a lot of times being no was a punishment. So for example, right, growing up, let's say if my little sister needed help for her homework and I had to finish my homework, I could not tell her no if she asked me to help her if I was in the middle of a project. Because if I told her no and she did not complete her homework, or she didn't complete it by the time my mom came home from work, there was this thing of, why didn't your sister do her homework? Why didn't your sister eat? Why your sister, like, why? And I started feeling like many of us, we can't tell our younger siblings no, because there's a punishment that comes with it. If we don't make sure they're situated, if we don't make sure they're straight, if we tell them no, we're punished for it. So I think as we grow up, like I said, it becomes a moral thing. Like, it sometimes, I don't know if it's just me, sometimes it kind of physically hurts me to tell people no, like to tell, especially if I can help them. Now, the problem is too, I'm so used to putting other people first that my definition of can is just physical. It does not mean that I have enough time in my day to still focus on me. It does not mean I have sometimes even enough money in my bank account to focus on me. But it's like this thing, if people need help, I feel like I'm always the one to do it, to say, oh yeah, you could pay me the money back. Oh, you need this. Let me help you with this. Let me help you with that. Because there is this thing of me feeling like saying no is kind of like pushing an old lady. Like, it's morally wrong. That's not what you do if you can help somebody. And I think it hinders me with creating boundaries with people, or taking a very long time to create boundaries, because telling people no or making people feel bad, it's kind of like being a older sibling and like you make your younger sibling cry and you're like, no, stop. And you're trying to get them to stop crying before your mom hears and you get in trouble. That's how it kind of feels, telling people no, like, no, stop. Don't cry. Don't be mad at me. Don't be this, don't be that, because there was always a punishment with it. If I made my younger sibling cry, if I made her sad, if I told her no, like, there was a punishment. And so now as I've grown up, there's this thing of like, I can't tell people no. Like, I'm literally a bad person for creating boundaries. And it's like, no, you're literally putting yourself first. But that's foreign to me. It feels wrong. Now, the next section, ironically, is going to be called Why Healing is So Hard. I want you to understand, at a young age, when you started to go through the parentification process, you started building this into your identity, right? And your identity is essentially who you are. And every single day, you prove to yourself what your identity is through your actions. I'm the kind of person that wakes up and brushes her teeth. I'm the kind of person that starts her car and lets it warm up before she drives off. And if I don't do those things, it's going to cause something in my brain called cognitive dissonance, which, just to explain it, kind of makes it have some kind of confusion between this is who I am and this is what I'm supposed to do, right? And so when I wake up in the morning and I decide to just start my day without brushing my teeth, the entire day I'm going to have probably a little bit of cognitive dissonance. Like, wasn't I supposed to brush my teeth? Why didn't I brush my teeth? People probably think my breath stink. I should have brushed my teeth. The same thing I'm gonna do if I just get in my car and start it without letting it warm up during the winter time. I'm gonna be like, dang, is this gonna mess up my car? Dang, was my car driving funny? Dang, do I hear something? Because I'm not the kind of person that does certain things or does not do certain things. And so I want you to understand that's why healing is so hard, because you have to unlearn some of the things that you've been learning, you've been praised for, and or you've been sometimes loved for since you were a child. Your identity was built every single time your mother thanked you so much for doing something for your siblings, and she shunned you every single time you did not do something for them. Your identity was built when you carry the responsibility of holding in your own emotions so your siblings and or your parents can express theirs. Your identity was built time and time again, year after year. And so for you to become adult age and finally say, I want to get rid of some of these things, your brain is like, why? And you're like, because it's causing us trauma, because it's causing us to have boundary issues, to have emotional neglect, to not let people in, all these different things. Your brain is like, okay, but like we've been living our entire life like that, so we can make do. Because like I said, going back to the 75%, 25%, you're used to just making do, right? You're used to just getting the short end of the stick. You're used to being overwhelmed. You're used to being the one that's strong. And so sometimes it's so scary to not be the strong one, because it's like, what else am I going to be? I'm the one that people don't have to worry about. I'm the strong one. I'm the person that keeps it all together. And if I start asking people for help, and if I start letting it be known that I can't help people, if I start saying no to people, who am I? And I think that's one of the hardest things too, is like you have this identity attachment. You're so attached to this identity because you never felt like you were able to create your own, because there wasn't enough time. There wasn't enough space. There wasn't enough emotions available for you to finally let yourself out and sometimes do the things that you wanted to do, and sometimes be who you wanted to be, to the point where it feels like, who am I? And so next, I'm going to give you some tips to kind of start unlearning this, but I want you to understand it's going to be hard. It's going to be emotional, but it's supposed to be that way. I want you to think about it like this. You've been carrying a backpack full of rocks for so long that you don't even realize the backpack is on your back. You think that your life is just so heavy. Everything feels so heavy. Everything feels so overwhelming. And you feel like you have to be perfect. And you feel like you can't fall. Like, it's one of the things I'm realizing that I crave in my life is safety. Like, I have never felt safe. I've always felt like if I fall, if I mess up, if I don't make it, nobody's going to catch me. Because I felt like that since I was a child. And I hold all this weight and all this weight and all this weight. And I had to realize it's a backpack I put on a long time ago. I'm not this heavy. I'm not this much of a perfectionist. I'm not this much of an overwhelmed and got to be perfect and have to do something from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep. I'm not like this. Like, and I don't, or get, maybe I am by now, but it's like, I don't have to be like this. I'm choosing to. But you don't realize at a very young age, you put on a backpack and year after year, you filled it with more rocks and more rocks and more rocks. And it's not that the rocks got lighter, it's you've gotten stronger. And you've gotten so strong to the point where you don't even realize this heavy weight that you've been holding on to, because the weight has become a part of you, to the point where you're afraid of letting go of the weight. You're afraid of saying, okay, I want to let go some of these responsibilities. You're afraid of letting go of people's opinions of you and the identity that you have now and the person that you have now. But you don't even understand that's the reason why you're stuck. That's the reason why you can't run. That's the reason why sometimes your life sometimes feels slow, because that weight on your back. And so there's a part of you that's kind of like, well, we possibly could still do it with the weight, and we still could be strong. But then there's another part of you that's like, just let it go. We could get so much stronger. Or I should say we should get so much faster in life if we just let it go. And that's what it's like getting rid of trauma. It's like having that back and forth relationship with yourself, part of yourself wanting to hold on to that trauma, but part of yourself saying it's the best for us to let it go because this is all that we know. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about is the shift toward healing. And I want to give you a few practical steps you can start using to start healing. The first thing I want to get you to start doing is becoming comfortable with asking for help. Small ways in your life, I want you to ask for help, not because you need it, but because you can. I want you to ask for people's opinions of things and how do they feel about this? Like, for example, with me as a content creator, literally asking people, how does this sound? Asking for help. Sometimes if you're going through something, now to a certain extent, I get, don't be telling everybody your business. Don't be putting it out there. But like, if you have people in your life that you feel like will understand what you're going, not even, actually don't do that. Don't look at it as if understand what you're going through. That's a big one I wanted to bring up. It doesn't feel like anybody understands what you're going through. And for a long time, it's not. And that's what your brain does to make sure you don't ask people for help because it says they don't understand. Ask people because they're in your life. Like, you feel comfortable enough for them being in your life. You feel comfortable enough for them to come to you with their problems. Just try it. Just get different perspectives on things. But start by doing that. Little ways in your life, just asking for help without feeling like you're bothering people, without feeling like, oh, well, maybe they're doing something else. And help looks different for everybody. Help looks like you literally asking somebody, hey, should I post this TikTok video? And help also sometimes looks like you being like, what you doing today? And just talking on the phone with people. Like, that's help. Sometimes you feel like you're bothering people, so you don't ask for that. But like, sometimes we just need help emotionally. We just want to let certain things out. So find little ways throughout the week, throughout your day, can you just start asking people for help? The next one is, I want you to practice saying no. Little ways in your life as well. I want you just to tell people no. No, I can't do this. And sometimes pre-prepare. If there's something that you always say yes to, whether it's a coworker, whether it's somebody, pre-prepare the no. Like, sometimes we feel like, because we're so strong, I should know what to say in the instant and I should know what to say in the moment. No, pre-prepare how you're going to say no, but little ways in your life. And even if you can do it, say no. Like, put yourself first. Start putting yourself first and telling people, hey, I'm sorry I can't do this. Hey, I'm sorry I can't do that. And it's not because you can't do it physically. It's because you're putting yourself first. The next one is learning how to get out of that 75%, 25% role. So that is just learning how to do things for yourself more. I think sometimes, even if we're not in relationships with people a lot, so let's say there's like romantic relationships or friendship relationships, like, even if people aren't there, because I'm not gonna lie, in this season of my life, I haven't really been around a lot of people, but sometimes I do realize I'm so used to putting myself on the back burner that I don't put myself first. And a very important thing to start doing is self-care, like learning ways, whether that is beauty kind of self-care, taking care of yourself, but then also on like hobbies type tip. Because another thing is, at a young age, you probably felt like things your age were childish or you don't do those certain things. So like starting hobbies and different things like that, but not feeling like, why am I spending money on this? And this is a waste. And what's the point of this? Because you want to do it. But I think that's so important, is like realizing where in your life do you put people first to start balancing out that 75-25. But even if you're like, I don't really interact with people to put them first, ask yourself, well, where am I not putting myself up? Because you also need to just start doing things for yourself, because you will notice there's nobody in my life that I'm possibly given to, but I'm still not given to myself because that feels weird and I'm just not used to it. And the final one is, I want you to start asking yourself questions. Now that you're becoming aware that this is somewhat of a trauma to you and some of the effects that it has on you, start asking yourself questions on how to get out of this. And so if you need some questions, I definitely recommend to go below in the show notes. And I have a list of questions that you can get sent directly to your email to help with that. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. Of course, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank y'all and have a great one.